Okay, hello, good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us at the Ballet podcast with Care of Academy. Today's guest is Miss Maria Konrad. She's a beautiful master teacher, choreographer, and contemporary jury member. And she'll be joining us to give you a lot of values about competitions and also in dance industry in general. So we'll invite her in with Mr. Du. Thank you so much.
Hi.
Hi Maria, how are you?
I'm
So
good. How
nice
are
to see
you?
you. So
So
nice
good.
to see you. This becomes a new norm and we see each other over the little screen, but I'm truly hope we can work together in the same capacity like we had it before. And you know what? It's just like looking at you and I'm just thinking, we just always take things so much for granted. I looking back just like yesterday, like when we're together, like we in Pittsburgh, we sit at the dinner and we just laugh and eat and talk about everything and be so close and express our feelings with art and dance and education. And we didn't know how good we had. And honestly, it's like
Oh my
would
gosh.
I would do anything to have that, but I guess we really have to be grateful, honestly, for what we had and those conversations, beautiful, meaningful, and personal conversations, and we had, and to realize our careers and what we do is so much connected to our feelings and to our lives. So dance, in the way, it is personal. So it is much more than just business for us. So I wanted to really thank you and thank all those dance teachers out there to literally uh, absorb this change in our industry and turn around into our industry right away to accommodate the needs of the students and not providing them dance instructions, but also provide them this emotional support. I am sure you are doing that every single day. And that just to show you that we are much more than just a dance teacher to the community. And at one point, Maria, you and I, we're gonna have to take care of ourselves. Otherwise, we don't have anything to give.
No, I think
But
that that's really important. And I think that as well right now. I mean, I think that was our favorite part about dance is connecting with people. It's the humanity, you know?
yes,
As much as we love a beautiful foot or a beautiful leg, we love what that human is doing within that facility. And I think it's almost like part of your heart gets ripped out. And I don't know about you. There's some days I wake up and I'm like, all right, we're going to make this work. And then other days I'm like, I can't do this anymore. I want to go back to my studio, you know?
I feel the same way. I feel exactly the same way. And sometimes I think, what it's going to be like after this is all over. It's really up to the all grassroots teachers, like at the front line, like you and I at the front line, to pick up the
Yeah.
pieces and then move forward again. And I am anticipating this is one of the topics that we're going to discuss a little bit later on, and then to anticipate what's going to be like after this crisis is over and what the dance scene literally is going to look like, the competition, the school, the studio scene is going to be look like. And we don't know what all students are going to be look like, honestly.
Yeah.
I know they're looking great through Zoom. I know they look great, but I'm not so much worried about their physical body. They're young, people recover, and another problem, but their heart, their mind, and how can we as dance professional to nurse them back together? Honestly, that is a really bigger question. And I think the conversation like this is all going to be helpful and informative.
I
Um,
I think that these dancers, what I'm really encouraging them as I do some of these Zoom classes, which I didn't want to do at first, because for me, it's all about that connection and like jumping through the screen, like it's really exhausting. But at the same time, I just totally wanted to be a part of it, and I had to give in, and I'm glad that I did. But the biggest thing that I'm trying to teach them is that we don't always learn as dancers, and we become better dancers when we become whole people, you know?
Yes.
So if this is the time that you want to learn something new, or that you want to play around with photography, feed all of your artist self,
Yes.
you know? And especially, and I know you have this too, especially those dancers that were just about to go into companies or apprentices, or just about to go there, they just feel really defeated, like, okay, do I just give up on this now? You know, because it's going to be a
Right.
couple
Right.
years before it kind of folds in. And my point to them is, go do something. I mean, dancers are adaptable, right? So
Yes. Always.
go do
Always. Yeah.
something that challenges your mind, your body, and your soul. And you know, I always say, every day that I'm in a dance studio, you to be a whole person, you have to have a physical challenge, you have to have a mental challenge, and you have to have a spiritual challenge, right? And we're so lucky as dancers that we automatically have that, you know? So I've been challenging my dancers to go out and do that. I have been doing my Pilates reformer certification during this time nonstop.
You
And I
take
think,
advantage.
you know, I've taken advantage, and it's so good for my dancers and for me to relearn and know the body. So you have to just kind of go and do that at this time.
That's all type A mentality. Go, go, go. I mean, honestly, it is really beautiful to see what I think this is really. Before you answer this question already, I was gonna ask you like what dancers can do in this moment
Mhm.
instead of just focus on Zoom classes and be in this almost frantic mood, not to be out of shape. But my advice is, students are young, right? To be professional dancers, you sometimes you have a all the time. You have 2 to 3 months off in the summertime. So
Yes.
for adults, we are somewhat used to that kind of transitional period. You know, we find a subject to do, or we find a way to keep ourselves in shape, and either in the gym or home. For the ballet dancers, we know how to do it, but for students, always sense this little panic, like I have got to make sure I don't go out of shape. I have to improve. So how can you walk us through that? What we should do? Yes, keep ourselves in shape, but what else can we do to prepare ourselves for
I
the
feel,
opening?
um, you know, at one of the lowest points in my life, I started actually training two women that are really inspiring to me, with Venus Williams and Serena. And I really have learned so much from them. And they, in their off season, cross train in dance. Completely opposite, right? Of what they're doing, pounding on the knees, sitting here. So now they're working dance, they're reversing the ankle, they're working on balance, and they're really passionate about it. And so what I've really learned from them is the cross training actually makes you the better athlete in the long run, you know,
Cross train.
because
Yeah.
it's the same thing where, you know, I love the question about from the teacher about jazz positions that you had recently, like, you know, jazz pirouette versus rotation. It's the
Yeah.
same thing, that if you really work in parallel, then you actually have more rotation on the outside because you're releasing the muscles at some point
Right.
if you stand like
Right.
this all the time,
Right.
you know? So it's the same concept with the body. Swimming, you know, Pilates, but that's all physical. You still have to do something to challenge your
Yeah.
mind. You know, I've been reading a lot of books. I've been reading a Buddhist book called Siddhartha. You know,
Yeah.
just all of those things, and having that space and time for me as a choreographer to be creative, because
That's beautiful.
the
Hmm.
ideas come to you when you have the space. So I can give you another example. We decided, you know, Venus is on the road all the time, so she's never able to plant, like have a garden, right? And I'm on the road all the time, so I'm never able to do that either. So we got plants and we were planting, and as I'm digging in the dirt and I'm planting a jalapeno plant, I had the idea of like, Maria, you are going to set a contemporary ballet secret garden. This is what you're going to do. This is your next project. You know, there's not a lot of that out there. That story is beautiful, you know, and it brought me there because I had the space to be able to do that.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. And honestly, it's require a more mature um, person like you, like us, to channel in, okay, if I don't have room to do the cross floor, if I don't have room to move, I'm just going to shift away from that. I'm
Right.
going to work on something that is my current environment allowing me to do. So I've been telling the students that work on your plie, work on your port de bras, work on the things that allow you to do. But sometimes, the children, students,
Yeah.
channel into the things they can't have it.
Of
They worry
course.
about their stamina. They're like, I gotta have this. So shifting, okay, for all the students out there, shifting your focus on something that workable for you to be adaptive. Your industry is going to ask you to do that later on when you enter in the professional world. You have to be moldable. You have to mold into a current condition. So work on your spirituality, for instance, and take a yoga class. Do all those things that are available online, or learning something about photography, learning about something like video editing. It's going to be so valuable for your career later on. So that's very
The, oth-
helpful. I
the
agree
other
with
thing that
you
I highly
totally.
suggest for dancers is you have the time right now and you know how to practice a musical instrument, because understanding a musical instrument as a dancer, that's hand in hand,
That's perfect. Yeah,
at
all
the
these
same
things that
time.
you can do. All so instead of focusing on the things that you is not available to you, open your mind to see what can work for you in the long run. So now, Maria, I wanted to focus on a couple subjects, and I think that you can give us the absolute insight on those subjects. And I believe some of the topics are needs to be unveiled. So I think the valuable experience that I had with you is actually one day I just walked by your classroom. Honestly, I taught class upstairs in Pittsburgh Ballet and YGP Masterclass. I
Yep.
came down, you were on the bottom floor. I walked by your studio literally for less than a minute. And I heard what you say. You got like a 35 girls sitting on the floor and you were there lecturing them. It was beautiful. It was absolutely beautiful. They were, and I listened. I was like, oh, let me just hear what she's saying. You were saying there wasn't a word about your lecture to those girls was unnecessary. Every single word, it is so valuable. The topic was your contemporary presentation in a ballet competition. Now, this is the ultimate mystery. So we know how to pick a classical variation. Your teachers are helping you. You say, my body shape and my strength and my weaknesses, I'm going to package myself. This is somewhat easier to navigate. But this contemporary selection for in a ballet company, first of all, contemporary dance, I want to go into that a little bit. That your education is going to break us down, including me. So please tell me, this is before we get into nitty gritty things, there is a difference. Please explain to our young students and, and the teachers, what's the difference between contemporary ballet and modern dance, please?
Oh, this is,
It's a big
Richard, there
question.
have been so many boards and lectures and on this. To me, at the moment, modern dance is an identifiable technique. It's a Graham, it's a Lamone, um, it's a Taylor, it's a Bartiniev, an identifiable technique. Simonson, right? Like of what that
Right.
is. And then
Mhm.
even in that world, there is, what we
So
call in
much
New York
debate.
a downtown dance technique, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
what is modern dance? Is it movement? Is it performance art? What that is.
Yeah.
But the way that I think about it is, so I'm a huge Renoir fan. I love Renoir. Okay. But I don't think while Renoir was painting, he said, I am an impressionist painter. Right. I think he
Right.
said, I'm a painter. And these people, they happen to paint like me, like a little bit, you know?
Mm.
And then
Mm.
after that period was over, we put a label on it of this is contemporary. You know what I mean? This is
Yeah. Right.
impressionist
Afterwards.
painting.
Right. 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 Right.
Afterwards. Um, so I think that we've moved away from the normal shapes. But like when I think a true contemporary company, I think of Batsheva, right? Like I
You're
think
right.
of the work that Batsheva does and Ohad. But I don't think that while Batsheva was doing that, 25 years ago, 30, what that was, I don't think he said this is contemporary dance. It was a new style and it was a new form. And I remember when I was a kid, anything in point shoes that wasn't classical ballet was considered contemporary. Anything.
Right.
Yeah, even if it had a jazzy swing or whatever that is. So that's how I look at it. At this point, if we can identify it as a classical modern technique, that's modern dance. Contemporary ballet, it's still evolving because you have people like Justin Peck in contemporary ballet, right? And
Mm-hmm.
then you have people like one of my favorites and a girl who I grew up with, Jennifer Archibald. Opposite ends, but still
Mm-hmm.
in there. So I guess eventually, when we're around the bend, right, it'll be
Right.
schools and houses of what that is at that time. But we'll never know until we move on to that time. That's my
That's right.
answer.
It's the beauty is it's a student phase of discovery because I
Yes.
kind of don't want to put label on anything because the Lemon technique at that point it is not just like you say it is not he said I'm going to create a method, I'm going to create a movement. He didn't say that. His body told him at that time have a lot to do with the social environment, what the dancer's body is like, what the need at that time for him to express. So it became a technique. It's like a tailor as well.
Yeah.
So it's everything is from Martha Graham, but he branched out. It became a style, but that's Taylor. That's what he did. So I don't like to put anything labeling on anything so we can understand it better. I agree with you 100%. The question is, how can we package it, this artwork, a 2 minute long artwork, into a ballet competition? And knowing all the judges, most of judges are ballet dancers, right?
Yeah.
Let's say YGP, right? It's most of the judges. And they have a set of aesthetic. It's not fault of anybody's. It's just because how they brought up, how they educated, and what their career is like.
Right.
So obviously when we go to the competition we wanted to have an advantage, right? How can we present ourselves to have the competitive advantage but at the same time not to lose the integrity of the artwork? So in other words, we're gonna put on the pair point shoes and start doing all sorts of things. And is that is that considered? I call it contemporary. Just I'm gonna pack everything I can do into that a 2 minute and a half solo. Where is the balance coming in place, Maria?
Um,
Where's the balance coming in place? Because you and I both saw so many contemporary works, and you're just like at one point you're just like, you know what? I wish I can just say one thing to that child. Something that's like
well, I
you know
think that's why I think that's why I started giving these lectures, right? Because
yeah.
a lot of these students, um, they have this beautiful and detrimental tool called YouTube, right? It's a
Yeah.
beautiful tool that we didn't have, but it's also detrimental at the same time, right? So, and I always find too, and I always tell this to the students, that normally the contemporary people, when they see something that's really, really gorgeous in the contemporary category that leans more classical, we tend to like lean that way because that's not our world, right?
Right, right, right,
And
right, right.
normally, like I remember you, Renchao, you were like, this piece is amazing. And I was like, it was just kind of weird. You know what I mean? Like, so I feel like whatever world you're
Because
in,
for ballet people, you got a good pair of feet and have arch, we're sold.
on the whole thing. And then I'm like, well, what did you like about it? Tell
Yeah,
me,
what do you like about it? But
So the first thing that I think is that needs to be stayed away from is for students to go and watch somebody solo from last year on YouTube that won and say, I'm going to do my solo like that. That's the first mistake. Or I'm going to use the same piece of
music,
music.
yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
So you're going to laugh when I say this. But if I hear one more Arvo part, like,
Yeah.
you know, when I hear Arvo part and I hear that song, I think Sylvie Guillem Smoke, and I think Wendy Whelan Wielden, right? Like that's what when
Yeah.
I hear that
After
song.
rain. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's what I think. So it's really hard if you're 14 years old at the beginning part of your training for me to get Sylvie Guillem out of my mind, you know, as I'm sitting there, you know. And I think I was teasing the kids, and it was in Pittsburgh. We heard Olafur Arnold's Near Light. I think I counted 17 times, right? So this is what I say. If you're in love with a piece of music, use it, okay? And go for it. Because there's always, what did Septime talk about? An X factor, right? When he was
Yeah.
on with you,
Yeah.
or you know,
Yeah.
dynamics. But totally go for that piece of music. But be aware that when you're searching on iTunes, so is everybody else. And if you've heard that
Yeah.
song before, that means I've heard that song 20 times. So in the beginning, I might go, okay. And then like I focus in, but it takes me a second to get there because when I hear those first notes, I just go, okay,
I'm thinking
here
of
we go.
something else, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
here we
I
go again.
I am totally guilty of that. You know, Max Richter, another
Love
favorite
Max
composer.
Richter. I love
Yeah.
him.
But how many times can you hear the music? You know, in New York, I am guilty. I choreographed a solo,
Uh-huh.
quite a nice solo, Max Richter. So YGP, we went to New York. YGP put the contemporary solo, the very last two. I think it's a pure coincidence.
Uh-huh.
And I heard the music of my piece came up, and I saw a different dancer. It was not all student. It was on stage dancing. The movement, I was like, oh my god, am I going crazy? Is this all student? No, this can't be. This is not my student. This is not all student. But the choreographer cut the music exactly how I cut it.
Exactly. Because it's a natural ebb and
It's a
flow.
natural evolution.
And
I was like, oh my god, like two
I'm
piece, complete two different choreographers never met each other, cut the music almost the same, and enter this movement almost similar. Because what else can you do with Max Richter? What else can you do except this, right?
yes, yeah, no,
So it was
yes.
just, I know
And if
it
the
is.
choreographers, you know, and what's crazy about that is the music tells us what to do. So if the choreographer is really letting the music tell you what to do, it's going to be similar. You
It's
know,
gonna be similar.
it's going to be
Yeah, it is
similar.
good. It's
So
similar.
that's the first thing. So Renchao, I'm guilty of this too, you know, totally guilty of this. So in these last 2 years, I am allowed to listen to Max Richter at home, Olafur Arnold's at home, Philip Glass at home, um, Renee Aubrey at home, but I am not allowed to use it in the studio to choreograph. That's my challenge. Um,
That's
and
beautiful.
and you know, and so that's the first thing, you know, because there's all these things I feel, and this is why I started giving this speech. And I can't tell you how many parents I've had contact me and say, "Thank you for just being truthful,"
Yeah.
you know, and honest. You know, and I always say to students, do you want the truth or do you want me to be nice? Like, you
Right.
know what I mean? And I
Yeah.
actually think they would prefer you be very direct, you know?
Yeah.
So that's one thing. Don't watch the last year's winners. Don't watch them because Madison Brown is Madison Brown. Ava
Yeah.
Arbuckle is Ava Arbuckle. You know what I mean? Like Alexis Bull is
Yeah.
Alexis Bull. Like you can't look at those people because they are their own voice. And I always say all the time, like, we already have a Tyler Peck. We already got a Maria Karowski. We are, you know what I mean? We already have a
Yeah.
Patty Delgado. Like, we don't need another one. I need you to
Right.
you. I need you to show me who you are as a human.
Right.
And I think
Yeah.
that contemporary category is the best way to do that, you know? Just like so that's one thing I would say. Emotional journey, right? So one of the most beautiful things about movies is when somebody is upset, it's not when they actually cry, it's the lead up, right? It's the
Right.
moments
Right.
before they actually cry. It's the holding back. So sometimes a 12-year-old comes out on stage and is giving me like days of our lives, like curtains. And I like literally, I think I leaned over to like Stephanie's salon and I go, does she have a mortgage she can't pay? Like, what's happening right now? Like, what is this despair, you know? So I want dancers to feel those emotions. I'm not saying that. I want you to feel it, but I want to go on the journey with you in the apex. Or if you start there, I want to see you resolve in that, because ultimately what we do, going back to the Greeks, is we're storytellers, right? That's what we do. You know, we're storytellers and we have to get lost in that story. I've never, you know, I'm not a ballet dancer, so I've never gotten to dance the role of Giselle, but I dream of it, you know? And so if I have the knife and I'm running, I know in my head, if I'm really invested in what she's going through, I'm not going to say heels forward, heels forward, heels forward the whole time. I'm going to be invested in what that is inside, right? And so that's the next thing I would definitely say is tell me a story. And it doesn't always have to be a dramatic story.
Tell your
Please,
own story. Yes.
yes, tell me something. Like, I'm an upbeat person, you know, I'm a bit of an actress, but I also like, I love a happy story, you
Yeah.
know, and I think it all depends on the panel of the judges too. Like, when we've seen so much drama, sometimes you get a breath of relief when you see something that's
Right.
joyful, you know.
This is I want to insert a little bit about this because this is have a lot to do how contemporary solo is being commissioned. So you got a parent, you got a teacher come to you as a modern teacher or contemporary teacher says, you know what, I would love for you to create a contemporary solo for my child. So it's a more of a commission work,
Yeah.
which is fine with me because there's a limitation in space and funds and resources, which is fine.
Yeah.
But here is the challenging part for us as a choreographers, which is where is the balance? If somebody come to you, Maria, so it seems to me that you are much more interested, invested in that child. You want to have a period of time, get to know the student, or let's say you already know the student for a while. You wanted to bring out the best of her, and
Yep.
in consideration of this purpose of this solo is for the competition. So that's one of the things that I have been doing is that instead of me choosing the music, having done all my stuff at this point, I'm a father of two, I'm a husband, I'm a teacher.
Busy.
The music I choose, music touches me, is very different from the music that touches you.
Yep.
So I give students, I don't just right away go to find a piece of music and use it as one of my expression, my moment. I let the student pick two or three music for me. I
I
let
do
them do it.
I do that
So
as
what
well.
speaks to them, that gives me the first baseline to know where the emotional maturity, where she or he is at this moment. So I hear the music, sort of an investigative moment for me to know who they are and what they do and what their thought process are. So then I work with them on choose one. So we come to a conclusion together. So where is the question for you is how can we as a choreographer find a balance? Now this is not about students, about us as a choreographer. How can we find all balance without being completely commercialized? Okay, you want a piece solo, I'm going to give you solo. You want something, I'll give you
Yeah.
something. Where is all emotional input in this and where's the balance? And that's a complicated issue because we are server, yes, we are serving the students, but at the same time we're human too. We need some stimulation, otherwise we become just purely professional, just giving, giving, giving.
Yeah.
So where is all taking in this process?
So for me, there's two ways to choreograph, right? You either choreograph to your vision or you choreograph to the body in the room.
Right.
Yeah.
And where's the balance to that?
Where's the balance in that? For me, I do the same thing. I ask the students to give me 3 pieces of music,
Yeah,
right?
I did that.
And then it helps me to get to know them. Like, first of
Yeah.
all, like, get to know them and who they are as a human. And then I say from there, if they're really inappropriate and not right for competition, it gives me an idea. And then I try to open their mind beyond that. And then I play 3 pieces of music all year long while I travel and I hear music. I put it in a folder. I just keep putting it in a folder. And so then, as I see them, or, where we're going, I kind of can figure that out. The other thing I do, because a lot of times when I come in, I've never seen the dancer dance. I've never seen them do a classical variation. I've never seen them whatever. And they're standing in front of me and I'm like,
Where do you start?
it's like a bad date, like, so I like long walks
Yes,
on the beach,
it-
so anyway, so I say to them, I'm giving away my secrets to you, Ren Chao. I have a questionnaire. And the first thing I say to them is, what's your dream company? What's your dream role? What variation do you love and why? I ask them, what's a correction they get all the time? What's a secret about yourself that your teachers don't know? Or if there's a way that your teacher perceives you that really annoys you, what is it and why? And then it gives me a chance to start a dialogue with them as a human
yeah,
in
like
a way that they're
investigation. Yeah,
comfortable with, in a way that they can start to open up, because as dancers, we're taught to not open up, right?
yeah,
So then it gives the dialogue in a way that, what's their favorite ballet? It tells me so much about them. If I see a body that's super, super muscular and they're saying to me they love Aurora, I'm like, oh, this child is romantic inside. You know what I mean? There's a romantic, even though the body's different, and that could actually be interesting,
right.
into what we're doing. So I asked this questionnaire because I think that it helps me get to know who they are, and then we start from there. The other thing that I do is there are times where I start something where I think a child is one way and they're not. And I will come in, it'll be the third rehearsal, I'll say, this is all wrong. Let's start again. Because it's not my butt up on the stage, you
Yeah,
know? And like anything else in life, we craft what we do. So no solo that I do is not going to be well crafted, but there are some that just have the magic, you know?
yeah,
So
yeah,
every solo will be well crafted, will be professional, will be put together because I've practiced that for a long time. But
right,
sometimes you just get that magic in the studio. It's the same thing as setting a ballet or having the perfect partner, those
right.
things, that magic happens. So I always ask the questionnaire, and that's how I balance that I can hear who they are, but then I can guide them. Because ultimately their competition is over the minute they step in for the weekend. The point of the competition is the work you do before the competition. It's that one-on-one time with your teacher. It's that chance to really explore that variation, and it's the chance to push yourself. Once you get into that building, the competition's over.
Yeah, that's
What
beautiful.
happens
And I
after that?
love, I love how normally as a professional, say, okay, do a turn, sort of moving, having the phrases done in your head and like them moving, improvisation, what have you. But I love what you said. You actually take the time in the very beginning to get to know them a little bit more about who they are and about when they open
Yeah.
up themselves a little bit more. And actually, this is very valuable to you in terms of how you get the best out of them. So my thoughts on this is that we have to, as a choreographers, we have to take in a lot of consideration of who are we working with, and
Mm-hmm.
that the age and emotional appropriateness is very important. As a judge, you see how many pieces out there.
Yeah.
This is a beautiful piece, and then you say this is should be done by a 28-year-old,
Yep.
not a 14-year-old, because clearly she or he is not ready to take on. So it looks put on.
Yep.
But clearly, at this moment, I feel like sometimes the choreographers are indulged a little bit too much in terms of their own artistic expression.
It is
Just like you
not.
said, it's very dark.
If I'm going to choreograph on a company, it's about my vision and what I want to bring on stage and bringing that to the dancers. If I am choreographing on a student, it is not about me. It is about the student.
That's beautiful.
It
That's
is not
absolutely
about me.
beautiful.
It's about the student. And
Yeah,
that's the best thing. You know, my favorite age group is 16 to 20. Most people don't like that age group. I love that age group. I love
Because you
helping
have a
them
way
make
to
the
work with
leap.
them.
Yes, to make the
Yes.
leap from pre-professional to professional, you know?
Right.
There's a push in a
Right.
loving way in that group. But I agree with you. It cannot be about us as choreographers. It's got to be about them. And the other thing that's beautiful about the contemporary category that I give in this lecture, for instance, I have short legs, I have short arms, I have an Italian girl body, and I got a left foot that does not point at all, right?
I think I heard that what you said when I was walking by.
So if I'm gonna choreograph a piece on me, I'm a mover though. Like I can like aggressively move. Okay, I'm gonna keep my left foot flexed the whole time, the whole time. And I actually think there is at Pittsburgh, there was a beautiful dancer in the senior category that's clearly going to be a contemporary dancer, not going to be ballet. She has horrible feet, but she totally covered them, and she did this like weird, refined contemporary thing,
Yeah.
not just the weird, what do I call it? The
Yeah.
wiggle, where they all just like wiggle, you know?
Yeah.
And Gennady turned to me and he said, "That was incredible. That was incredible. She doesn't have a body for a ballet company, but she was incredible, you know?" So
Right.
I think that we know that as professional dancers, you know, like we can
You can tell.
identify
Yes.
a
And we can
talent
appreciate.
and
Absolutely.
a structure versus, you know, whatever. And the other thing too that I always tell students is that we're like rooting for them. We don't want to watch 4 hours of solos and be like, "Meh," you know, we want them to do well because then we're entertained, you
Yeah,
know?
you look for something that you can positive to write. Absolutely. Absolutely.
You know, you want them to be good. And ultimately,
Yeah.
I say this to the students too, you want everybody else to be good too so that you're inspired to work harder.
Right.
It's not
Absolutely.
about winning, it's about being inspired to work harder. The other thing that I can talk about, because I know that you and I have had this discussion about structure, right?
Yeah.
So a ballet variation run chow is normally how long for female? A minute and 20 seconds, unless it's the
Yeah. And
really
then
long Paquita
yeah.
one, right?
Two
Like
mi- 2 minute 2 minutes maximum. 2 minute long.
maximum.
Yeah. Two
The
minute
thing that
long.
I see go wrong in the contemporary category, and I get it because it's a lot of money and they want to perform and they want their stage time. I get that. I understand that. The contemporary solos are too long because the reality is they're practicing their ballet solo way more than they're practicing their contemporary solo with a familiar vocabulary that they do every single day. Whereas
Yeah.
contemporary vocabulary, they do what, like twice a week, maybe?
Well, it's just after you run all the ballet, after coaching time, you say, "Do you want to run the contemporary?" That's
Yeah,
your time. You want to
exactly.
run it?
Take a run, go work on it yourself, you know?
Yeah,
That's what
you want to
happens.
run it? Yeah.
Whereas that needs to be broken down even more because they're not familiar with that vocabulary. So that's the first thing that I think that happens there. And the second thing, they're tired. They're tired.
Right.
So please don't give me a massive turn section at 2 minutes and 15 seconds.
Right.
You know, like just just I have a formula. I don't start with an extension to begin with on any dancer because they're nervous. They're walking out on a strange stage that they haven't rehearsed with. The lights are coming on them. So I always try to do an interesting shape in the beginning because, you know, we're normally writing. So when we look up, we see the interesting shape. And then within 30 seconds, if the dancer is a turner, I like to put the turn in there while their legs are strong in that section. And then about into the minute, that's where all the extensions will be. And then the last part, I use last 20 seconds as to wrap up the storytelling of the piece.
Yeah. Structure, very important.
Structure. And
Yeah.
it's a sensible structure. I see so many little ones that are like, "Oh, my balance, it was just so bad today." The balance is hard. You're nervous. You see 20,000 other girls backstage. If you think about
Right.
it, it's like feeding them to the lions, you know?
Right. Right.
So
Yes.
you want to go on stage, you want to do that, and you want to get out. The other thing too that I tell the girls, I don't know if you've ever been backstage for that open stage section where everybody's on the stage, but I'm having a panic attack, like watching them maneuver. I say, pick your turn, use your mind, space the piece around the stage, and leave. Because ultimately, you obsessing about something that's not going well, it's not going to make it any better on stage.
Right.
You
Right.
know, so I always give that advice. So the structure of the piece, and you have to know you. If you're very solid and that extension makes you feel solid, then do it at the beginning. But this is the structure that I follow that seems to work for the dancers, because it's exhausting, especially in a contemporary piece that's mostly driving. By the end of it, I don't need and oh, this is the other thing. I don't need a fouette turn in a flat ballet shoe.
Because the choreographer feels they have to put it in there. They
Well,
need to put that in there.
yes, and that's what I say to the kids. Unless you're telling me a story that you're in the middle of a tornado and you're trying to get out of it, you're telling me that story, put it in. Let it be there,
Yeah.
But the rest of it, with that. And then, the same thing too with feet. Ultimately, there's good feet, there's bad feet, there's only so much we can do. Me too, right? But you can cover them, and you can figure out a way on your body. And I think that goes with costume, with that too, which we can totally talk about, how to make that work. And this is the last thing of the logistics of it, is the point shoe. Okay. So if a dancer is ready, if they're at that point of their training where they need to really start working on that articulation and they can really articulate and move around the top of the point shoe, do it in the point shoe. But if I see you still struggling with the point shoe, half the time I say, take them off. If I'm coaching somebody else's work, take them off and let me see. And then they're like fearless and wild, and that's
because it doesn't give you extra points if you're not ready to do the contemporary solo on point. It doesn't give you any extra points.
And I know that there's trends. So like 3 years ago, everybody did a point shoe piece. Now they're starting to take them off a little bit, so that's the thing too. But sometimes, if a dancer's 14, 15, they might have to use it as a challenge to start getting that suppleness in the shoe, because it can really, really help. But that's the problem. That's us being professionals. Like, oh, we're going to do it as a challenge, as a teaching exercise, whereas a kid doesn't think that way, in that.
And I agree with you so much. It is a strategic, logistical planning for that 90 seconds or 2 minutes, 2 minutes maximum for a solo. So it is in that 2 minutes, every second counts. So sometimes I feel like people waste just 20 seconds to walk on stage and they do nothing.
Yes.
So that may be very meaningful for a mature choreographer in a bigger piece, but in the purpose for a child to enter a competition, because the judge is looking at you for 5 seconds. If you don't do nothing, their head is coming down.
Yep.
So it is really a strategic planning where I believe there has to be, in terms of, we're talking about nitty-gritty things. I think the speed dynamic is very important. You can't have 2 minutes long, the same bombastic speed. It has to come down a moment in the mid part. Then you bring back up again. This is just how people's mind can absorb things. It can never absorb things at the same rate. Even for same thing with the slow music. I cannot have the same speed. Nothing changes for 2 minutes long because there's nothing's happening. It has to have up and down in energy, in complexity, and in music. So this is very valuable, absolutely tip from you as a choreographer, also as a seasoned judge.
Yeah.
I mean, this is something that we see. Okay, that worked. Why it worked? Because it has a combination of all those elements in there. It kept my attention.
Yep.
So, and I think this is very important for everybody to listen. I want to move forward a little bit to the costume, Maria. Please break this down for us, please.
Okay. So what I tell the girls too is, we go backstage after watching 2.5 hours of Max Richter solos, right? And I look at Ren Chow or I look at Bruce Marks, and I say, Mr. Marks, do you remember that solo? He says, which one? And I say, the one in the Yumiko leotard. And he looks at me and he says, they're all in Yumiko leotards, Maria. But if I can say, the one that had the sheer with the piping that kind of came out, then immediately everybody goes, yes,
Yeah, that
I know
one.
what you're talking about. There's it's part of that it factor and dynamic, right? So and then the other thing too is boys don't have this so bad, but it's hard to be a girl. Our bodies go up and down and up and down and up at probably the most inopportune times, cycles. So that leotard only look, if you feel confident like a Maria Karowski in a leotard only, and that's the beautiful God-given body you've been given, wear it, right? But if you're going to be out there and you're going to feel uncomfortable because it's moving around or, whatever, be a little more creative because ultimately what you're saying and I'm saying too is it's a storytelling. It's a dynamic. It's up and down and your costume should say something. Now, I don't need like, if you're a banana in the piece, I don't need you to be a banana and like peel out in a Vegas costume either. Simplicity is good. So one, you should always feel comfortable in your own skin. And if you don't feel comfortable in your costume, you need a new costume, right?
Because that's going to affect how you dance. I mean, can
All
you
of it.
imagine? We're all dancers. At one point, you go on stage, how great we feel that this costume, we feel great in it. It's comfortable, and I look great. Now that's going to have a beautiful impact on how you perform that piece. And now, how many times? And I can personally tell you, many times the costume, one is uncomfortable, the other it doesn't fit your body, or it doesn't, you look at yourself in the mirror, you don't feel good, you don't want to go out there in this communication has to be has to happen between the dancers and the teachers and the coach and the choreographer. The dancers view is that this is for the students out there. If something's uncomfortable, you have to tell your teachers, I don't feel comfortable in this out there.
Yep.
Ultimately, just like you say, Maria, you are the one out there dancing, not us.
Right.
So every choreographer, we all have our aesthetic dream to see what I want to see in this piece. I only want to see this. But a bigger consideration is that child comfortable in that outfit at that age? It
Yeah.
has to be appropriate. It must be appropriate. There's many costumes I felt uncomfortable, and I felt absolutely uncomfortable for the dancers because I would hate to wear that out there.
Yes, yes. I to say to the kids because they can identify with this statement. When you walk on stage in this ballet competition, you should feel like you're going to prom or you're getting married. Like you
Yes,
look
yeah.
better than you've ever looked in your whole entire life.
It
Like
is so important. That's the first impression.
yes,
If you go out there, we as a observer look at the costume. Oh my God, that's ridiculous. Now, what a chance do you have for us to take your solo seriously?
yep,
Right? This person with the hair, makeup, and costume is absolutely important. This is not something that we know that you know very well. We know somebody just went to the wardrobe and picked the two things up and put it on you. And we also can tell
yep,
now this is somebody who really took the time, created something very unique without overdoing it. And that is going to carry the long way in terms of how we judge you, how we create our evaluation of your performance. So to me, this is all a part of how much care you put in there. Keep in mind, you only have about 2 minutes.
yep.
You have to use it. It's like you say you were saying dating. You it's like a speed dating. You got the 2 minutes to tell the story, to
Yes.
introduce who you are, to introduce your ability, artistry, and to leave a good impression so they can give you a high score. All that under 2 minutes.
Yep.
So every minute, every single thing counts out there.
I can't tell you how many times too, and I know you've seen this as well, where I feel like the student hasn't practiced in their costume
Yeah.
several times. You know, you really, it takes time and care. It takes time and care into each and every detail. And this is such an amazing moment for dancers for the first point in their life to be their own producers. They're producing their own vision on the
Yeah.
stage, you know, and they have to be guided. For those teachers out there, you have to be guided in in that, you know, in which way you go with that. So I always like to say, you know, the memorability factor of the costume. I don't. It's my pet peeve, and you know, I don't really love the junior categories, the younger kids in just a leotard. I don't like it.
Mm.
And I have to say that, you know, especially if they're going to come out and do like a crazy flexibility, I have experienced on the road, it makes my male counterparts feel very uncomfortable. So that
Mm.
is my experience in it when they come out and they give you that so you think you can dance leg, you know,
Yeah.
all the way up. You know, it's just not my favorite with just the leotard.
Yeah.
Um, Unless it's a beautiful watercolor or it's been designed by the costume designer at Joffrey. You know what I mean? Like, unless
Yeah.
there's something, a high fashion statement in it, then that's what I would say about the costume. And also stay away from, just like the music, stay away from the catalog books for contemporary costumes, because you know, I saw this season, what was it, the marble tighty, the it's like a tight unitard that was marbled. I saw that in every city I went to more
Everybody.
than once.
Everybody using it. Everybody's using
Hmm.
it. Yeah.
So
And
again,
yeah.
like, be original, be thoughtful, you know, and that's what makes a good dancer, right? You know, Renchao, that's what made you a beautiful dancer, is that you were very thoughtful about the work. And I think that in these times of these YouTube videos of just taking away versus being thoughtful about you, who you are, who I'm Maria Conrad, and this is what I want to present, you know, in the work.
Yeah. And I agree with you 100%. It has to be appropriate. And in theory, nobody should limit people's expression. If this is how I like to express, um, all other elements should not be issue. No, that's in theory. However, we're all humans, right? We all have feelings, and we all have our own set of judgment.
Hmm.
And that is why the jury member called the judges,
Hmm.
right? We're there to differentiate and to insert our own opinion. So therefore, the judge's point of view has to be taken in consideration,
Yep.
in my opinion. So, it's not really about 100% about how your self-expression. Because if you want to do a solo, if you want to do a performance, ask people come to see your performance is one thing, but you're on that stage, ask to be judged.
Yes.
That's dynamical change is people have to uh, take it into consideration. And if the piece, the music, and often talk about nitty gritty things, Maria. I think talking about you want to create your piece impactful. You want to be impactful, but naturally people goes to this kind of angry, bit angry feeling, like a very angry. Now, this feeling, it's valid because you want to speak. There is a desire inside of you.
Right.
There is a feeling you want to express. I challenge the choreographers. I mean, this is not the students' fault. The students did not say to the choreographer, says, please create an angry piece for me. It didn't say that, right? So this is a challenge that I really wanted to have for the choreographers. That challenge yourself, create a piece, just like you said. It doesn't have to be uplifting, doesn't have to be, but create something impactful. Purposely steer away from the anger, from the depression and anger and stumbling around, stare at the audience, because this is 95% of the things that we see on stage is has that angry look, which is, I believe, it's an easy way out, because
Yep.
easily you feel like this is something that I can do to make myself impactful. But I challenge the choreographer. There's much more to go around it, because it's children, sometimes a 13, 14-year-old, to see them stumbling around on stage, it is not very, I don't know, I don't, for me, after the 55 times, I don't want to see it again. I mean,
Exactly.
that's just the reality of it. And if you go out there, have an uplifting piece, have a happy piece, have some piece about love, just pure, just simple idea about love, and that's refreshing. I want to see it. So strategically planning, knowing what's out there all the time, create something opposite, something different. I bet you anything you'll grab judges' attention.
I gave my questionnaire. I walked in, this little 12-year-old boy. He just looked like a prince, and he answered my questions. Yes, Miss Conrad. No, Miss Conrad. Yes, Miss Conrad. And at the end of it, I kind of turned to him and I said, Avery, I feel like you're funny. And he goes, yeah, I'm funny. And I said, all right, let's try this. And I went this whole like Italian gesture thing.
Yeah,
He, the judges said, thank you, thank you, thank you. Appropriate for him. You know what I mean? Like
yeah,
that sort of thing. So again, it's the choreographers and the students knowing their audience and
yeah.
knowing what's there, you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah, and
and going
it
for
is
it.
choreographer's job to steer way to success. You know,
Yeah.
even if there is perhaps a student that's 16, 15, 16-year-old at the rebellious age, at this transformative age, and give you a piece of music so depressing, so or it's at that time it's your job to say, you know what, this is really great for some appropriateness, but it is for the competition. It's your job to steer away from it. So, and I think that's why I believe this conversation is important. A lot of people needs to hear. And for classical selection, somewhat it's easy because we have a set of rules. We have the setup how we judge, but this is a free fall.
Yes.
And that's presenting an opportunity. I believe in contemporary category, presenting a great opportunity for kids to stand out.
Ren Chao, I will never forget when I was on the faculty for the International Ballet Competition in Jackson. And,
Yeah,
the contemporary nights came. And it was always very interesting because you see it all the way, from all over the world, right?
everything.
So,
Yeah,
yes. And taste doesn't live everywhere. Yes. So, so it's different. But this group um, came on, I believe they were from China and just had the coolest cow neck, like white shirt and black pants, but so unique and structural. And they just started in, and the whole faculty, Charles Askegaard was sitting next to me, and he was said, I have seen the winner. We're done. Like, you know what I mean? Because it was
yeah.
simple, it was elegant, it was tasteful, it was different, it wasn't a violin, so it just kind of, you know what I mean? It just
Yeah,
kind of, you knew it's that it factor, it's that dynamic situation, and if
yeah.
we can teach the kids to not be sheep and to go with that artistic voice, sometimes you're gonna be really successful, sometimes you're not, but you have to be willing to go there.
This is also, Maria, I wanted to segue into my next question. This process, to me, this working together, creating something new, or even learning a rep piece, and to in preparation for a competition, that creates another window of opportunity for the students. Perhaps sometimes it's like, you know what? I want to do it. I can do this. This creative process speaks to me. So this is sometimes opportunity to ignite that creativity, the little light bulb turn on the kid's head. It's like next time I'm going to create my own because I see how this process goes. I'm not lost. Sometimes people is not intuitive to creativity. They just lost. They don't know where to start. It's like a restaurant. You look at the menu, you just don't know what to pick. You like everything looks good. But now, how can we give our students some feedback as for you as a dancer and as a teacher, as a choreographer? What is your advice to our students? And I want to specifically point out to our female students
Mm-hmm.
in choreographic route, because I really interested to see more voice come out of that sector.
Yep.
I mean, you look at the YGP, you look how many women, how many beautiful female students are out there in comparison to male. Okay, we know the Jurassic in terms of data. And what do you do to promote, to lead or give us female students advice in terms of how can they become a part of the creative process and maybe later on to be successful as a choreographer?
Okay.
And what is the route to do it?
So if you're going to choreograph your own solo for competition, I believe that that's a rite of passage for every choreographer,
Mm-hmm.
right? I have a
Mm-hmm.
vision, I have a thing.
Mm-hmm.
But also, what you need is a good editor. You need somebody to be able to stand up to you and say, no, 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 no. You
Like a
might hear
mentor.
that. That
Yeah.
does not work. And even now, when I work with stuff, I used to be scared, right? Because we're insecure. Ultimately, you're taking a piece of yourself and you're putting it on the stage. We can't be scared to have editors in our life. Now, you can take their information, and if you know it's true, you apply it. If it's not quite there, it's just chatter, you put it to the back, right?
Right.
Um,
Right.
but even now, I I show video footage to Margot Sappington, or I send it to Philip Neal, or I say, am I on the right path or am I crazy? You know? And normally when
Mm.
you feel that insecurity, that means you're on the right path. Yes.
Correct.
So it's
Yes.
important to have somebody that you love and you trust as an artist, because artists are emotional beings, right? And not always logical. So we need to have somebody that we trust to guide us. So that would be my first thing. My second thing is I feel like so many dancers romanticize being a choreographer. Yes.
Mm.
They say, I don't want to
Interesting.
teach, or I don't want to dance professionally. I just want to choreograph. Well, I got news for you. It doesn't work like that. There's very few that it works
Kids,
like
listen
that,
up.
you know?
Yes.
So, what I say all the time is I love to teach. I love that connection. I love that growth for myself and for my students. That's what I am first. And then, secondly, I choreograph to kind of fill my heart with what I need to do in there. Um, so that I would say, if you have the opportunity as a female artist to dance professionally, do it.
Do it.
Don't
Mhm.
turn down that professional offer to become a choreographer. Don't do it. Do your choreography on this side. And this is why I say that. As I said, as I talked about my shape and my line, I don't have the luxury of dancing professionally in a company. I have the heart of a dancer. I wasn't gifted the rest. Okay. So when you have, and you're dancing in a company, there's so many more opportunities to grab a partner and work on your partnering. Because, we always say, and I'm sure you know this too, men are really fantastic repertoires of work because they know the male part and the female part in a pas de deux,
Mm.
where the lady
Yeah.
knows the female part, right? So if these women can have a chance within those companies, within those festivals, with high level dancers, because that's the other thing, that it's very, very hard. Your work is only as good as the dancers you put it on. So
Right.
I am
Right. Right.
interested in working with better and better and better dancers and better artists, because then my work looks better and better. It could be the exact same steps on other dancers that aren't at that point, and it doesn't look good. But the minute you put it on for a body, it's better. So if the dancer has the opportunity to dance professionally, do it. It makes the road a little bit easier. And then the last thing, I don't know what it is in our nature as women, we always kind of put ourselves second to men. We always think that there's a climb. And I don't actually necessarily believe that's true. I think that there are a lot of fantastic men in this business who have built up women, and have
Yeah.
really, really helped them. The Michael Vernons of the world, the Bruce Marks of the world, the Runchows, the Philip Neals, like all of these people have really, really helped to build up women in that way. But it's okay to have your own voice. So I have a really beautiful friend and choreographer who is the voice of our generation, and movement wise has her own vocabulary, and that's Jennifer Archibald. It's this hip hop and ballet contemporary together, right? So I used to think like, oh, people won't like my joyous theatrical work because that's what they want, right?
Mm.
But she's her and I'm me, and it's
Me. Yeah.
okay to do those theatrical pieces, you know? And she's the biggest one to say, Maria, people love to laugh. People love joy. Like, go for it. Do it in your way, you know? And I'm so supportive of her because her work is so powerful. And I don't know that I could work in a studio like that, you know? But for me to produce those joyful works, because what are the works of Balanchine that have laughed? Whose Cares, Slaughter on 10th, those works, you know what I mean, are around for forever, you know? So
Right.
that is okay too. So as women get out there, I used to think that to be serious, I had to create serious work to be taken seriously. You just need to create good work in
And
your
your
own way.
work,
Yes.
absolutely. I also have almost troubled with this subject, because there's a movement always ongoing, and I think it is so necessary and it absolutely needed to be addressed. Why there's such a lack of imbalance in between the female choreographers and the male choreographers in numbers. So I'm trying to steer away from a political agenda. I'm trying to steer
Right.
away thinking is a man-made. Do we purposely go out there to promote men and not women? I don't believe it's true because that's not really dance world, how dance world works, because we just want good work.
Hmm.
If there's a beautiful piece out there, we cannot care less whether this is created by man or woman. We cannot care less. So why there's such a political a movement in dance world in terms of the urgency, the need to promote female choreographers. Now, to me, there is a little disadvantage. I want to put it purely an academic point of view. And therefore, I agree, I 100% agree with you, Maria said that dancers need to really be a dancer first.
It's much easier
Because
that
then
way.
that's your chance to understand your vocabulary.
Hmm.
That's your chance to truly understand how body works, not just learning and reading and watching, but immerse your body into it. So that's number one. I truly believe that if you have opportunity to dance, that's only going to enrich your vocabulary. Second, I think I've been contemplating this, and I think maybe people maybe disagree with what I said, but I wanted to point out this is truly a academic exercise. What's lacking sometimes in ability, not in ability, the comfort level, it's partnering work. That's a big chunk of vocabulary in choreography. In terms of a pas de deux or a group piece, you always have partnering work, either 5 couples, 4 couples, or just a pas de deux.
Yeah.
So I try to think in this case, men have tendency to be more comfortable with the vocabulary just
Yes.
because when we partner, most cases we're all face front. So I'm looking at the feet my partner's back. Either is it two men or two women, or man or woman. I'm talking about partner work, not talking about strictly man or woman,
Hmm.
just a part of the work. So men always behind and your partner is in front of you. They are all facing if you look at it, there's few vocabulary truly face each other to do manipulation. But they always turn around because this is how we feel comfortable
Yeah.
to have us to disguise our work behind our partner so our partner can do this absolutely gorgeous things. Now,
Yeah.
this relationship, this strategic spacing gives the man, the person behind, have the direct knowledge how the movement works, how the grip works, and what he has to do to make this thing work, number one. Number two, how to manipulate in the way that is organic for the partner. So all his life, and I believe I can tell in my experience, I partnered like a Philip Neal. We partnered, right? We were really in the front because we're tall and I'm more intuitive, like a Philip, a good partner. So we're behind. So we have truly understanding, not just for one piece, but many years of experience
Yep.
of how this thing works. So now, let's say a female choreographer, a lady, you are in the front.
It's a
You
different.
only felt how you're being manipulated,
That's it.
but you don't really have the same knowledge as the man behind you in terms of how the strategic movement that they are making behind you.
Yeah.
So this is not a political disadvantage.
No.
This is truly experience a knowledge issue here. The lack of experience, not because they choose to, it's just because how ballet worked. So I truly, this is, I want to put this out there just for people to somewhat steer away from a political point of view. It is
I
how can,
agree with
what can we do? Because from political point of view, we can fix it. We can inject more money, opportunity to female choreographers, but the work itself, it has to speak itself. So my idea is giving more opportunity for the woman to understand your disadvantage. First of all, to understand the disadvantage. Therefore, you can fix it.
Yep.
I mean, I don't know. I can be completely wrong. I mean, as the people out there,
I'm with you
disagree
on
with me.
both of these parts. Like, of course, I want opportunities. I want to be afforded the same opportunities, and if there is a disparity, I want to be able to work up to those. But I don't want to be hired just because I'm a woman. I want to be hired
Yeah.
because I'm good.
Because you're good. Yes.
Yes. And so, and with the partnering, I agree with you. I do. That's why I said it. I think that men do have an advantage because they are responsible for all of these moving parts.
Yeah.
So, what I can say to my females, what I've done is I find some um, a male female couple, like if they're in college or if they're students, and I say, "Can you come in and let me play?" They love it. And then
Mhm.
if I say, "Okay, we did this," and the male gets it to happen, I go and stand with him and say, "How do I teach that? Tell me how I teach that,"
Yes.
because I don't have the muscle memory to do
Yeah.
that.
The muscle memory. Exactly.
Or again, having a good editor with a male that you trust for you to
Hmm.
say, "Can you please come to my rehearsal and strictly just look at the partnering and help me with this?" And I've done
Right.
that a lot, a lot, because that's the only way that you're going to get better is to accept the fear
To
of not
accept.
knowing something. You have to
Yeah.
accept the fear of not knowing something,
Yeah.
and then you
So
have
you
to
can work
move
toward.
forward through the fear. If you don't feel fear, that means you're not progressing. And that's like with a
Right.
solo, with a variation, with a project, with running a school. If you don't feel
Yeah.
fear, then that means you're in your comfort zone and that means there's no growth. So you
Right.
have to keep going. So it was fearful for me to ask, but once I did it, how many people would love to be like, "Yeah, let me show you your knowledge." You have to
Right.
have a curiosity. And that's the
Right.
biggest thing that I can say to all dancers and all humans is we have to be curious about our world and we have to not be afraid to ask those questions as
That's
artists,
beautiful.
as humans, as choreographers. You have to be able to go for it. And I still have fearful, conversations with, there's a new project and I really want to do this. Even reaching out to you during this time
Yeah.
of Zoom, I what I saw first, segueing and talking about this fear, Runchow, is all of these ballet schools are trying to adjust, and the first people to go out the window are their contemporary faculties because
Yeah.
they're part time, and we're all trying to make it interesting. So I reached out to all these ballet companies, Nashville, Tulsa. I reached out to you. I reached out to Joffrey, and I said, "Let's trade. You teach for me a ballet class for me, and I will teach a contemporary class for you." It was really fearful. Like, honestly, I felt like, oh, what I rejected, that's okay too, because Venus always says you learn from the losses. You don't learn anything from the wins, you learn from the losses. And so that fear, I did not have one person say, "You know what? I don't want your class." They all said, "Come on, come on, come
Yeah.
on. This is a good idea. Like,
Yeah.
let's make this work,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
So that's what I have to say. It's like we can't be afraid to have editors. We can't be afraid to have a voice, and we can't be afraid of fear. We have to move forward as artists, especially during this time.
Absolutely. That's beautiful, Maria. That's beautiful. Um, what do we do? We just do what we do, continue and to first to protect ourselves. So it's like I always say, the mask on you first, and then you can help others. So let's take care of ourselves professionally, and so we can help others. And I believe that the industry, the students needs us more than ever.
Hmm.
And I always feel just the way I interact with you, you are really the kind of the teacher that students respect you, but at the same time, you have a much better chance they opened up to you. And it is, I don't believe it is a put on. It is just who you are, Maria. I mean, it
Oh,
is a gift. It is absolutely gift. Just like how we met. I mean, we started having conversation in
and
a
it was just
car,
like,
and yeah, it was just, we might not know each other personally, but at the level of professional, we know each other. We know who we are,
yeah,
and therefore we know who we are personally.
yep.
And I just that's why I felt your position always unique. Serves, ballet teachers always going to be ballet teachers. Ballet teachers. So you are someone that there will be many Marias out there. I have true appreciation from a ballet teacher point of view. I actually wanted to be a Maria. I wanted to be a person like you that we can connect all dots
But you
together
are
because
that person.
I'm trying.
You are that
I,
person.
I am trying, and I feel like it is important. It
Well,
is the role of instructor, the role of dance teacher, that we have to ask more. We have to ask absolutely more of ourselves.
what I think makes
Um,
you so special, Renchao, and I always remember this, is we do come from a field of tradition, right? But it's
right,
also our job to push it forward. And it's important to have, and you said this, and it's stuck with me. It's important to have knowledge of where we came from, but we have to know where we want to go. And I don't care what you did yesterday. Let's talk about what we're going to do tomorrow. And that's
right.
how students have to approach these Zoom classes. I don't care that we were in the studio last week. What are we going to
What do we
do
do now?
tomorrow to become a better dancer? Because it takes a lifetime to fix a finger and a head. Why not speed it up right now? Let's put our attention right there, you know?
Right.
And all of that, I've watched you step up with all of this with the Kirov Academy. And the other thing too that I've learned so much from the athletes that Venus says all the time is pressure is a privilege. And we can't be
Beautiful.
afraid of the pressure. Pressure makes us step up and do our best. And we have to find
That's
a new way.
beautiful.
We have to find a new way to do that, a new way to reach people, and stay afloat, like if I,
Stay alive. Yes,
yeah,
stay afloat. And I
yeah,
think sometimes pressure is good because pressure creates energy, right? Creates
yes,
that burst.
yep.
So what are you working on now?
Uh,
What are you working on now, and what is your plans for this post
well,
pandemic situation?
nobody out there steal it, but I am going to start trying to pull music for this vision of Secret Garden to see if it works. Because sometimes we have an idea and then you get into the nitty gritty and you don't know. I did set work on Pennsylvania Ballet too. And Renchao, listen to this request. Eddie Tovar is such a sweet man. He said, I need it to be accessible for elementary schools. I need it to be cool enough for high school. I need it to be and elegant enough to sit on the program with the company. And I was like, that's not a
Yeah,
tall order. You know what I mean?
yeah.
Like at all.
I need a good
So we
enough
ended
to
up
if I
doing
want to go to a competition,
Charlie
I go to
Chaplin.
competition. Yeah.
Yeah. So we did a Charlie Chaplin ballet. He's a beautiful composer. And so it has an element of sweetness, an element of darkness. And, like all these kids missing performances, I set this whole work and I never got to see it in performance because it all got canceled. But I'm very, very lucky that it's been chosen to work with one of the art and design colleges in Philadelphia. And they're going to create costumes for it in the fall and it'll go on the museum circuit. So I'm very excited about that. And then just trying to hustle. I have to be patient like everybody else. Companies right now are going to go back to their last year's season, and
Hmm.
redo financially if we can even keep them afloat, as much as we need to do.
Hmm.
So just like students out there, I have to be patient. So I'm going to probably do a bunch of self-produced work and festival
Yeah.
work for right now. until I can get back out there in the company scene. And I want the challenges. I want the challenges from every company, and I want to do everything. If there's something to do, I want to do it right now. So if you're out there, bring it on. Let's do it.
That's such a beautiful attitude. Such a beautiful attitude. And quite frankly, Maria, we have no other choice. I mean,
There's
what
no
a choice
choice.
do I have? The students look upon us for inspiration, for leadership. What are your choices? Right?
Yeah.
We have this responsibility to be in always to be in the forefront. If we fold, who's gonna stand up?
Yeah.
Nobody.
Yeah. So
So
we have to be patient. We have to be
be
patient
patient.
in the meantime. And that's why when I encourage my females to not just be a choreographer, I thank God every day for having teaching and to be able to move and becoming a better teacher every day. So, this is forcing us to become better teachers, and that's what we have to do.
Right, 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 right. That's beautiful, Maria. With that, I want to thank you again. Thank you so much to be a part of this. And
And now I don't
honestly,
want to
I
go back
do.
to real life. I just want to talk to you.
I want to talk to you in person.
I
As
know.
I said before, we just take such things for granted. I think this is, it can be just snap a finger and everything was just like done.
Yeah.
I held on to the absolutely last second before I dispersed the students. But
Yeah.
I knew it's going to be a treacherous journey. I knew it was going to be a treacherous journey. But in the meantime, we just have to take care of each other and take care of our loved ones and take care of students. And we move forward and we have prepared for the anticipation. So
Perfect.
I'm looking forward. And I know this virtual scenario is going to stay.
Yep. For a while.
After this is going to stay. And actually, I'm happy about it because you know what? People get used to it and that can totally be a part of our lives.
Yep.
And so thank you. Thank you very much for what you've been doing. Thank you so much for what you are doing and what you're going to do. And I appreciate you very much,
Thank
Maria.
you
Thank
so
you
much.
so much.
And thank you to everybody
Thank
that
you,
wrote
Miss
in.
Maria.
Thank you so much.
Where can they find you, Miss Maria, on social media?
At MA Konrad on Instagram.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Have a
Yeah.
see. Great day,
Wonderful.
guys.
Have a
See you.
great day, Maria.
Bye.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye bye.